I didn't want to go. I mean, really didn't want to go. The idea of standing around a bunch of corporate types, half of whom probably practice their laughs in the mirror and the other half too deep into brand jargon to talk like real people, it made my skin itch. But Lauren had been talking about this reception for weeks. Said it was important. All the partners will be there, she told me, like I knew who any of them were. She was being unusually persistent about it too, kept reminding me. She even bought me a new shirt, which she never does unless we're attending something family-related. I remember thinking at the time, why the big deal? But I chalked it up to career stuff. I wanted to support her. That's what partners do, right? So I showed up. The place was fancy, but not over the top. One of those rooftop venues with string lights and glass walls, the kind that tries really hard to look effortless. I came in about 20 minutes after it started, on purpose. I figured I'd let her warm up the room before I walked in and tried to remember who worked in what department. I spotted her instantly. She was standing near the drinks, one hand on her hip, the other holding a glass of white wine. Her hair was down, the way she wears it when she wants to feel confident. And she looked good. Too good. There's this particular gray dress she saves for formal events. Form-fitting, sharp at the shoulders, soft at the collarbone. That one. I paused for a second, just looking at her from across the room. And that's when I saw it. She was laughing. Not the social laugh. Not the "oh, I get that joke" laugh she used with coworkers. This was something else. This laugh had a lean to it, a dip of the head, a palm to the chest. Mate. Familiar. It was the laugh she used to have with me when we were still in the glow of dating. Like she forgot she was in a public space and let something real slip through. The man next to her was tall, maybe a few years older than me. His tie was loose, his body angled toward her like they'd already shared a dozen private jokes. He didn't touch her. He didn't need to. The way they stood, too close, too comfortable. It told me everything I didn't want to know. Then I heard it. She said, clear as day. He's so naive, it's honestly kind of cute. And then she did that sigh, this slow exhale like she was tired of explaining herself to someone who would never quite get it. I froze. There was a brief second where the crowd noise seemed to vanish, like someone had hit mute on the whole evening. Just me, her, and that sentence playing on a loop in my head. I didn't move. I didn't even react. I just kept watching. He leaned in, smirked. It wasn't a regular smile. It was the kind people make when they're in on a secret. The kind of look two people share when they've crossed a line and are both pretending they haven't. It was so quick, so subtle, but unmistakable. That look rewrote the entire atmosphere around them. Then she saw me, and just like that snap, she flipped it. Lauren turned slightly, looked surprised, lifted her phone like she had just gotten a message. Her expression didn't show panic. It didn't show guilt. It was practiced, rehearsed, the same way she used to switch tones on business calls. Controlled. She made her way over, phone still in hand, and smiled. "Oh, shoot," she said with this light chuckle, as if something funny had just happened. "You weren't supposed to hear that." "Hear what?" I asked, playing dumb even though my pulse was hammering. She rolled her eyes in a playful way, tapping her phone screen. "That whole thing was a setup. I was trying to coordinate something for your birthday next month. Surprise ruined, thanks to my loud mouth." I just blinked at her. I couldn't find the right face to wear. Part of me wanted to believe her, to say, "Ah, okay," and chalk it up to one of those weird misunderstandings couples laugh about later. But that voice in my gut, the one you ignore until it starts screaming, it whispered. She didn't even flinch. She wasn't flustered. She wasn't scrambling. There was no backpedaling, no nervous stammer. Not even a delay between seeing me and offering a full-blown explanation. She had it ready. And that's what hit me the hardest. Not what she said. Not the guy. Not even the laugh. It was how smooth she was. Like she already had the script in her back pocket. I nodded and said something like, "Okay. Well, nice surprise." But my voice sounded far away, like it didn't belong to me. We stayed another hour. I don't remember much of it, except that I ended up dancing with her boss. A sharp woman in her 50s who had no business moving like that in heels. She laughed and twirled and told me I needed to loosen up. I think I danced with her just to prove to Lauren I could still be charming when I wanted to be. Maybe it was petty. I don't know. All I know is I caught Lauren watching us from across the room, lips pressed together. She looked annoyed? Jealous? Whatever it was, she noticed. When we left, I drove. Lauren talked about how great the turnout was, how her team really pulled it off. I nodded at the right moments, said, yeah, looked great, and they seemed to enjoy themselves. But my mind kept going back to that moment. The lean, the laugh, the tone she used when she said I was naive. Back home, we brushed teeth in silence. She tossed me a casual "love you" before rolling over in bed. I didn't answer, just stared at the ceiling, trying to piece together what exactly had shifted. I didn't have proof of anything. No lipstick on collars, no anonymous messages, no late-night phone calls caught on speaker. But I had that moment, that laugh, that line, that perfectly delivered alibi. It's weird. You think the first red flag will be obvious. But sometimes it's just a shift in the air. A sentence that sounds too polished, a smile that doesn't reach the eyes, a laugh that doesn't belong to you anymore. That night I couldn't sleep. I just kept thinking, what kind of person has a backup explanation ready before the question is even asked? And when did I become someone who doesn't trust the person sleeping beside him? After that night, the party, the laugh, the lean, the twisted excuse, I kept telling myself not to spiral. That maybe I had overreacted. That maybe, just maybe, I was the problem. That I had become too sensitive, too suspicious, too aware. But I couldn't shake it. That moment by the ice bucket had a way of sticking in my brain like a bad melody, looping when things got too quiet. And it wasn't just the moment itself, it was what it unlocked. Like a dam breaking loose, and now everything I used to ignore came flooding in with new meaning. Started with her phone. Lauren used to be casual with it, leaving it charging on the counter, screen up, unlocked half the time, forgotten in the bathroom. She even used to ask me to text people for her while she drove. But now, it was never more than 6 inches away from her hand. Always screen down, always locked, always quiet. I remember one night in particular. We were watching something, some murder documentary she usually liked, and her phone buzzed once on the coffee table. She glanced at it, just a glance, and in the space of that half-second, I swear I saw something flicker in her face. Not fear exactly, just alertness, like she was scanning the situation, assessing if I saw it, if she needed to react. Then she stood up, took the phone into the kitchen, and didn't come back for almost 10 minutes. When she did, she had that same glossed-over calm she wore at the party. I asked who it was, just for the hell of it. She smiled. Work chat. You know Susan, she never sleeps. I nodded, but my gut said no. Susan wasn't the one who made her twist the phone like a poker card and carry it like a ticking bomb. Then there were the gym trips. Lauren was never a big fitness person. She used to joke that yoga was just a way to justify expensive leggings. But now she was suddenly going to the gym 4 nights a week. Always after dinner. Always right when the house got quiet. She'd come back late, sometimes near 10, hair done, cheeks flushed. Not sweaty, just pink. She said the gym had a nice locker room. Said she liked cooling down before driving home. The first time I said, "You smell different." She blinked, frozen for a beat too long. Then she laughed. New shampoo, coconut something. You like it? I said I did. But I knew that scent. It wasn't shampoo. It was perfume. One she hadn't worn in years. Back when we were still going on weekend getaways and she used to send flirty texts in the middle of meetings. The kind of scent you apply when you hope someone notices. And then I noticed her wardrobe. Not the everyday stuff, but the things that started creeping in. Heels she hadn't worn since her friend's wedding. Skirts that weren't practical for work. Blouses that still had the tag. All styled to perfection. All subtly alluring. I'm not talking about club wear. No, it was more strategic than that. Like she was trying to feel desirable again. But not to me. I remember the day I asked her if she wanted to go out. Just us. Dinner, maybe a drive, something low-key. She hesitated. That was new. I have a late meeting, she said. Quarterly review prep. I offered to pick her up after, just to see what she'd say. She shook her head almost too fast. No, no, it's gonna run late. I'll just Uber home. Don't wait up. That phrase, don't wait up, lodged itself in me like a shard. We'd been married 6 years. We waited up for each other. That was our thing. Through red ice, delayed meetings, the flu. Now suddenly, I'm being told to go to bed without her. Okay. She started using the guest room more, too. Said she needed quiet for her client calls. That our bedroom had too many distractions. Sometimes I'd knock, just to ask if she wanted tea, and the door would open a sliver. Just enough to take the cup, not enough to let me see inside. Her tone was always cheerful, practiced, like she'd just come off stage and didn't want to break character. One night I came home early. She hadn't heard me. I walked up to the guest room and paused outside the door. I could hear her talking, not loudly, just in asterisk mately, that tone. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew the rhythm. She sounded like someone building a new version of herself. The one she used with strangers, not the man she used to fall asleep beside. I stood there for a full minute before walking away. I told myself I didn't need to eavesdrop, that if I had to listen through doors, something was already broken. And then the previews, little flashes on her phone. I catch them sometimes, just enough to see the light change on her screen. The messages were always cleared fast, names hidden, notifications turned off. She said it was because she was trying to stay present, reduce digital noise. But I knew her habits. Lauren wasn't a privacy freak. She was the kind who posted pictures of her lunch and didn't mind if I picked her lock screen playlist. All these things by themselves could have passed as nothing. You start questioning yourself. Maybe I'm being insecure. Maybe I'm projecting. Maybe she really is just stressed and trying to stay productive. Maybe people change. But it wasn't just one thing. It was the pattern, the sequence. Each tiny change on its own was a crack, and now, with every week, those cracks were starting to form a shape. And that shape looked an awful lot like a life that didn't have space for me anymore. There were smaller moments, too. The way she'd correct me mid-sentence, gently but insistently. The way she'd tilt her head, listening to me like she was bored but trying to be polite. The way she started keeping her AirPods in longer, even while walking around the house. Always just a bit removed, like she was halfway somewhere else. Sometimes, I'd walk into a room and feel like I was interrupting. Nothing obvious. No lipstick stains. No hotel keys. No secret accounts. Just distance. Carefully arranged distance. And it hit me hardest in the spaces where love used to live. Like how we used to share grocery lists. Now she had a notes app one wasn't synced to. How she used to text me memes at work. Now it was radio silence. How she'd once playfully steal fries off my plate. Now she ordered her own and ate quietly. One night, I caught myself watching her sleep. Not in the romantic way people write about, but the quiet, sad way a person stares at something they don't recognize anymore. She looked peaceful, like nothing was wrong, like all the weight was mine to carry. And that's when it dawned on me. She wasn't just hiding something. She was preparing for something. The gym trips, the new clothes, the avoidance, the careful narratives. They weren't random. They were groundwork. She wasn't spiraling. She was rebuilding. Just not with me. It was like watching someone pack a suitcase in slow motion, while smiling like nothing was happening. And I kept asking myself, over and over, when did this start? How long had I been asleep at the wheel? That laugh at the party, that was just the wake-up call. The real betrayal, the one that hurt worse, was seeing how natural she was at all of this. As if she'd done it before. As if she had rehearsed this version of herself so many times. I was the only one still reading from the old script. There's a line, you know? Between suspicion and proof. Between wondering and knowing. Once you cross it, there's no going back. You can't unknow. You can't pretend anymore. Can't bury it in hope or excuses. It just sits there in your chest, heavy and final. And I crossed that line on a Wednesday night. By then, I had spent weeks living in a kind of quiet madness. Smiling on cue. Making coffee. Asking, how was your day? Like I didn't already know I wouldn't get a real answer. It was like living with a stranger who still knew where everything was kept. She walked through our house like she belonged, but the warmth was gone, and I was done talking myself out of my own gut. So I lied. I told Lauren I had to attend a 2-day seminar, some professional development thing an hour away. She nodded, barely interested, told me to drive safe and text when I got there. No questions, no concern. Just a distracted, okay, babe. But I didn't leave town. I packed a weekend bag, threw it in the car, and rented a cheap, furnished studio apartment 5 blocks from our house. Craigslist find. No frills. It smelled like old carpet and lemon cleaner, but it had a clear view of our street. That's all I needed. The first night was nothing. She came home around 6:30, same as always. Watched a show, ate leftovers, spent a little too long on her phone, went to bed early. If anything, she looked bored, almost disappointed, like she was waiting for something that didn't show. I sat by the window for hours, doubting myself again. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I had turned into one of those obsessive guys who see ghosts in their own marriage. Maybe I owed her more trust. And then came the second night. She texted me around 7:15, something simple. Hope the seminar isn't too dull. Don't forget to network, you always complain later that you didn't. I didn't reply. I just watched. At exactly 10:52 p.m. Headlights swept across the house. A black SUV pulled into our driveway. Windows tinted. No plates visible from my angle. My heart slammed into my ribs. The engine shut off and the house lights, already on, flickered briefly through the curtains. Someone was inside. Not dropping off. Not a mistake. I waited. 3 minutes. 5. 7. Then the garage door opened. Slowly. Quietly. And the SUV backed out and disappeared down the street. That's when I moved. I walked the 5 blocks with no plan, just a cold certainty in my chest. I used my key. The house was quiet. Lights low. Smelled like lavender detergent and something else. Cologne maybe, or aftershave. Something sharp and out of place. I walked into the kitchen and stopped. There he was. A man I'd never seen before, sitting casually at the table like it was his. He wore a t-shirt and sweatpants. He was barefoot. My mug was in his hand. The one I bought Lauren as a joke years ago. The one that said, "World's okayest wife." She hated it. She kept it anyway. He didn't jump. He didn't even look that surprised. Just nodded at me like a neighbor who forgot your name. "Hey," he said, calm. "Didn't know you'd be back tonight." I stared at him. My throat burned. I couldn't speak. Then she walked in. Lauren, wearing soft gray shorts and a pale lounge shirt I'd never seen before. Her hair was curled slightly at the ends, still styled, still fresh. Not bed hair. Not home hair. She looked composed. Her face didn't show fear or shame. If anything, she looked tired. Not from stress. From effort. She was standing behind him, fixing the back of his collar. Like it was normal. Like she had done it 100 times. She froze when she saw me, but only her hands stopped. Her face didn't change. No gasping, no scrambling. She didn't move to explain, didn't even pretend to reach for a lie. The air between us felt like glass, thin, brittle, one breath away from shattering. I finally spoke. "What is this?" Silence. She didn't answer. Neither did he. The man just took another sip from my mug and glanced away, like I had interrupted something vaguely inconvenient. I stood there waiting for the world to start again. For someone to react like this was as insane as it felt. But nothing happened. I looked at Lauren. She held my eyes, finally. Her expression was unreadable, almost resigned. "I can explain," she said quietly. I shook my head. "No, you can't." I turned around and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I didn't demand answers. I left it open. Not metaphorically. Literally. I let the cold night air pour into the house behind me. I wanted her to feel it. To know it wasn't hers anymore. That whatever warmth used to live in those walls had followed me out the door. I walked until my legs hurt. I don't remember the route. Just streetlights and wind and the echo of that man's voice. So casual. So unfazed. Like this was just another night, another routine, another borrowed space. My mug still warm in his hands. When I got back to the studio apartment, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall until the sun came up. I kept seeing her hands, adjusting his collar. That simple, familiar motion. That was the worst part. Not the physical betrayal. Not even the lying. It was the int asterisk Macy. The casualness. The absence of fear. Told me everything. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't new. It wasn't a fling that got out of hand. It was established. It was safe. It was normal. I thought back to all the times she said, "I'm just tired," or "You're being paranoid," or "I'm not doing anything wrong." I thought about every moment she looked me in the eyes and chose not to tell the truth. I had given her time, space, the benefit of the doubt, everything. And she had used it to build another life inside mine. Like someone squatting in your house while you sleep. And the worst part? I didn't even feel rage. Not then. Just hollowness. Like someone had reached into my chest and scooped out everything soft. Couldn't even cry. It was too deep for that. Too final. You think, in that moment, you'll want to confront. Demand answers. Punch walls. Scream. But the truth? When the evidence is right there, undeniable, quiet, human, you just go still. Like your body is trying to keep you from falling apart. That night became a line in the sand. Before and after. There was no coming back from it. No talking through it. No working on things. The illusion shattered. The trust vaporized. And all that remained was silence. That kind of silence doesn't just fill a room. It follows you. It echoes. And even now, I still hear it. I went back the next morning. Not because I forgave her. Not because I needed closure. Not even because I missed her. I went back because it was still my house. And I needed to see if it would still feel like mine. Didn't. When I unlocked the front door, the house greeted me with a kind of eerie stillness. Not the peaceful kind. Not the quiet you get when you're the first one awake on a Sunday. This was something colder. Like walking into a place where time had stopped. Airless. Hollow. She was in the kitchen. She looked up as I walked in, surprised but not startled. That struck me. She didn't look like someone who expected me to stay gone. She looked like someone who had mentally prepared for both outcomes. Her face was tired, but not wrecked. Her eyes carried something between guilt and defiance. A strange combination. "Hey," she said. Like we hadn't both stood in the same room 12 hours earlier with a stranger holding my coffee mug. "Morning," I replied. My voice came out dry, like it had traveled through dust to get to her. She didn't apologize. Not then. Not in the way I expected, anyway. No desperate pleading, no explanations, no excuses. She just moved. She made breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, a bowl of blueberries. My usual from back when she still remembered my preferences. She set the table neatly like she always had. Even laid out a napkin folded in half. I stared at it like it was some kind of artifact. When I didn't sit down, she wrote a little note on the napkin. "Eat something, please," then walked away. I stood there for a minute. I think I was waiting for reality to kick in. For something, anything, to snap me out of the fog. But it didn't. I was still in the house. She was still here. And nothing looked out of place. Except everything was. The walls still held our photos. The shelves still had our books. Her shoes were still by the door. But it felt like walking through a museum exhibit of our life. Like someone had recreated our home with perfect precision but left out the soul. I moved through the rooms, aimless. The living room, still warm with afternoon light. The couch where we used to watch movies, now cold with unused pillows. The bathroom counter, still lined with her skin products, as if yesterday hadn't happened. As if that man hadn't stood barefoot in my kitchen drinking from a mug that used to mean something. And the worst part? She didn't try to pretend nothing happened. She didn't deny it. Didn't rush into some emotional monologue. She just behaved as if something had shifted, and we were both quietly adjusting to the new terms. No mention of the SUV. No mention of the man. No "let's talk." Just silence. And politeness. the kind you reserve for someone you used to know. She walked with this fragile grace, careful, like every step was part of a performance. She left space between us as she moved through the house, like a roommate who didn't want to intrude. And every time our paths crossed, she offered something small, a refill of coffee, folded laundry, the TV remote placed closer to my side. I didn't touch any of it. It wasn't that I was angry, not in the loud, cinematic way people expect. It was deeper, more like erosion, a slow grinding away of belief. Trust, love, connection, it had all receded like a shoreline. What remained were just rocks and wreckage. The house was too clean, too quiet, too careful. She played soft music while she cooked. An old playlist I hadn't heard in years. Songs we used to play during weekend chores, back when we still danced in the kitchen with dirty hands and bare feet. Now, the music just echoed against the walls, like it didn't belong here anymore. And neither did I. That night, she didn't ask if I was staying. She just made the bed. Not ours. The guest bed. Fresh sheets, folded duvet, a new pillow I hadn't seen before. She didn't say a word about it. Just nodded once, gently, and walked away. I stood in the hallway for a while after she went upstairs. The house creaked in familiar ways, the water heater humming, the wind brushing against the attic vent. But none of it felt comforting. Felt indifferent, like the house itself had given up on pretending it was a home. I finally went to bed, stared at the ceiling. I didn't cry. I didn't sleep either. My body just lay there, still listening to nothing. We lived like that for days. No accusations, no fights, no discussions, just movement, habit, space. She'd leave post-it notes on the fridge. We're out of oat milk. I'll pick some up. Dinner's in the oven if you're hungry. The trash goes out Thursday. I'll handle it. They weren't apologies. They weren't admissions. They were placeholders. Like she was trying to keep the machine running, even though the engine was dead. I barely responded. A nod here, a grunt, sometimes silence. It wasn't out of spite. I just didn't know what language to use with her anymore. The woman in front of me wasn't the one I married, but she still wore her face. And me? I felt like a ghost. I walked the house like I was haunting it, looking for signs of life that no longer existed. There were moments, brief ones, where we'd accidentally make eye contact. And in those moments, I swear I could see the flicker of something real behind her eyes. Sadness, maybe shame, maybe even fear. But it never lasted. She'd blink, adjust, and smile, and I'd look away. The days dragged on like that, each one slightly more numb than the last. I went through the motions, work calls, emails, meals, but none of it felt connected. My body was present, but my mind was always somewhere else. Somewhere between memory and loss. I started sleeping in the guest room full-time. She didn't protest. She didn't even mention it. Just started leaving a glass of water on the nightstand. Always on the right side. Always with a coaster. Like she was still trying to care in small, silent ways. But the silence only made it worse. Every kind gesture felt like a cover-up. Like she was decorating the ruins instead of clearing the debris. And the thing that really broke me? She stopped wearing her ring. No announcement. No conversation. One morning it was just gone. And yet she still set 2 places at the table. Still brewed enough coffee for both of us. Still said good morning, like it was some sacred routine we were both supposed to uphold. Even as the floorboards under us gave way. It was like we were both actors in a play we hadn't rehearsed for. Smiling on cue. Avoiding the lines that mattered. Pretending that breakfast and laundry and ambient music could somehow drown out the truth. But the truth was loud. And it lived in every quiet second between us. She slept in our bed. I slept down the hall. And in the space between, the life we built sat quietly and died. No screams. No confessions. Just airless silence. A house with no breath left in it. At some point, Lauren must have realized I wasn't going to bring it up. Maybe that's when she decided to do something. Not say something, do something. Not once did she sit across from me and open with, "Can we talk?" No apology. No explanation. No request for forgiveness. She just started adjusting, carefully, quietly, like she believed that if she moved enough pieces around the board, she could reset the game without confronting the last move that ended it. Started small. A plate of muffins on the counter one morning, blueberry lemon, my favorite. She hadn't made them in years. She used to bake them during our second year of marriage, back when we both still believed in surprise breakfasts and lazy Saturdays. I used to tease her that they were her way of showing love without having to say it. She'd roll her eyes but keep baking. This time, the muffins came with no note, no smile, just a plate, covered with a thin layer of cling wrap, waiting like an offering. I didn't touch them. A few days later, I noticed she'd changed the records in the shelf by the player. My old collection. Stuff I hadn't listened to in forever. Dylan, The National, The War on Dr*GS. Records she used to roll her eyes at when I played them too loud on Sunday mornings. Now they were stacked neatly in rotation, like she was trying to reanimate a version of me she thought I might miss enough to come back to. She started playing music again in the mornings. Not her playlists. Mine. Soft guitar, late 2000s indie, a few piano instrumentals. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't careless. It was a signal. Like a lighthouse, or maybe just a trick mirror. And every time, I sat there, drinking my coffee in silence, watching her move through the kitchen like she hadn't dismantled our entire life in silence. Then came the plants. One Saturday, I woke up and found a row of new potted plants on the front porch. Succulents, ferns, a potted lavender, and something with yellow blooms I couldn't name. She used to joke that everything she touched died within a week, and we'd laugh about it like it didn't mean anything. Now she was nurturing greenery, as if life could grow again here, in this space we had both scorched with silence. I remember stepping outside that day and staring at them for too long, wondering if this was her idea of fixing things. New plants, old music, forgotten muffins. Like recovery was something you could decorate. Inside, the house changed too. She started lighting candles again. Not the fresh linen or clean cotton types she used when guests came over. No, these were soft, familiar scents. Vanilla, cedarwood, sandalwood. She timed them with the evening, like she was trying to rebuild ambience from muscle memory. She began cooking dinners that mirrored our early years, stir-fry with too much ginger, shrimp linguine with white wine, even that ridiculous sweet potato chili I'd lied about liking once. She set the table with real napkins, played soft jazz, opened a bottle of wine neither of us touched. But never, not once, did she say a word about him, about that night, about why. Every gesture, every neatly folded towel, every cinnamon stick on the stove, it all carried a single, unspoken message. Let's just return. But return to what? We hadn't addressed the damage. We hadn't acknowledged the crater between us. She was trying to restore a house by repainting the walls, ignoring the fact that the foundation was cracked in half. I think the part that struck me most wasn't the effort itself. It was how much of it she already knew how to do. Like she'd rehearsed this before. Like she knew what kind of details might pull me back in. But that's what made it worse. It wasn't messy. It wasn't chaotic. It was precise, controlled, campaign. One afternoon, I came home from work. Yeah, I'd started going back into the office just to breathe, and found a photo on the fridge. It was us at a lake from years ago. She had clipped it with a tiny wooden magnet shaped like a canoe. It had been buried somewhere in storage. I didn't even know she still had it. We were smiling in the picture. Genuinely. The kind of smile where your cheeks hurt and you don't care how you look. I stared at it for a long time. I remember thinking, this is the version of us she's trying to bring back. This frozen second. As if that one photo could stand in for the years between now and then. As if memories could testify in her defense. But even in the picture, I couldn't unsee what I knew now. She started suggesting routines again. Want to walk after dinner? She asked one night. We hadn't gone on a walk together in months. I told her I was tired. The next night, she left a second toothbrush in the guest bathroom. Subtle. Blue handle. Same brand as the one she used to buy for me. No label. No comment. It was just there. The implication was obvious. She thought we could gradually blend back into one shared space. I stayed silent, not because I didn't have words, but because I had too many, and all of them were buried under the weight of what hadn't been said. I watched her settle into this new phase, this restoration effort. She moved like a curator in a ruined museum, carefully dusting off artifacts, adjusting lighting, trying to convince visitors that nothing had been stolen. And maybe that's when I really saw it. She wasn't trying to fix what she'd broken. She was trying to erase that it had ever happened. She wanted to fold the betrayal into the background, behind cinnamon candles and record sleeves. She wanted to be the wife again, without acknowledging how far she'd walked away from that role in the first place. It wasn't recovery. It was damage control. She never asked how I was doing. Never asked what I saw that night. Never asked what I needed. Because if she asked, it would mean admitting that something had been lost. And she wasn't ready to say it out loud. One night, I found her sitting at the dining table with her laptop open and a travel site pulled up. She looked up at me, hopeful. Thought we could go somewhere. Just us. Reset. Reset. That word hit me like a slap. Not rebuild. Not heal. Just reset. Like we were a router that needed unplugging. Like betrayal was a glitch to be powered off and on. I didn't say anything. She waited a few seconds, then closed the tab slowly, like she didn't want to spook me. We didn't speak the rest of the night. She set the table with care again, lit another candle, turned on some soft playlist. But the house was no warmer. The music didn't soothe. And the food, no matter how familiar, tasted like nothing. Because when love rots at the core, the decorations don't matter. You can sweep the ashes, light some incense, and hang pictures of better times. But a ruin is still a ruin, and trying to make it beautiful again doesn't make it whole. She started making plans like we hadn't lost anything. Brochures appeared on the counter. Beach towns, cozy rentals, fresh starts. She talked like it was hope, but it felt like fear. Fear of losing the comfort, not the love. I listened, nodded, but said nothing. My silence unsettled her more than anger would have. She kept performing normalcy, weekend ideas, grocery lists, asking if I wanted to repaint the bedroom. I didn't answer, because I wasn't in it anymore. She was rebuilding a life for two without checking if I was still part of the blueprint. It became clear. She didn't miss me. She missed what I represented. And that's when I felt the true end. Not when I caught her. Not when she lied. But when she tried to carry on like my role was replaceable, even while I was still in the room. One morning, she placed coffee in front of me and lingered, waiting, maybe hoping. Her eyes searched mine for something soft, something open. But I had nothing left to give. She started talking little things she'd done, ways she was trying, but still no truth, no ownership. Her efforts weren't for honesty. They were for silence. She never asked for forgiveness, only forgetfulness. Days later, we were at dinner with friends. She laughed, smiled, played normal, but her eyes? Empty. That night, I realized she didn't just lose a marriage. She lost the man who had finally stopped begging for answers. I left, quietly, no grand speech, just a clean exit. And it was the silence I left behind that haunted her most, because it said everything she refused to hear.